Dear students, thank you for joining me. Today, we will discuss guidelines for analyzing short stories. In our today's agenda, first of all, we will try to answer such questions as what is literary analysis and why it is relevant. Then we will discuss what is concepts and what is a concept and a theme in a story. And then we will try to discuss the structure of literary analysis in more details together. What is literary analysis? So literary analysis looks critically at work of fiction. It can be a novel or a short story in order to understand how the parts contribute to the whole. When analyzing this work of fiction, it is very important to consider elements such as the context, setting, characters, plot, literary devices, and themes. And we will consider all these elements in more details in a minute. It is also important to remember that a literary analysis isn't merely a summary or a review. It's not about just summarizing a plot of a story, but it's more about an interpretation, an analysis of the work, and building an argument based on the text, building an argument around the main themes and ideas conveyed by an author. Why it is relevant? First of all, literary analysis develops critical thinking skills. While reading the story and analyzing it and writing up your analysis, you will develop critical thinking skills. And I do not mean criticizing, but more about analytical assessment and having more in-depth view about the meaning behind the story, what is the main meaning of a story and how it relates to your own experience. And also it develops reasoning skills, because when you are trying to build the argument based on the main ideas of a story, you need to have reasoning skills in order to present your own opinion, in order to contrast and compare your position with the position of an author. Critical analysis, critical literary analysis also enables students to understand and interpret main themes in more details, more deeply. Why it is important? Because these main themes and concepts in a story, they mirror the context and experience of an author, his or her position and worldview. So it's very important to try to understand and interpret. What interpret means is that you are trying to understand it through your own lenses, through the lenses of your own experience. Also, this analysis helps appreciate literature as an art form. While reading, you will enjoy the story, you will try to understand the author, become closer to the main heroes of the story, and you will try to understand their actions and their motives. It really helps you appreciate the literature from the other side. It's not just an entertainment reading a story, but also it is kind of some philosophical pleasure in this process, if it is done correctly. And how it is done correctly, we will discuss in a minute. So before discussing the structure of a literary analysis, we will talk about the concepts and themes. So what is a concept or a theme? In this case, I'm using these terms interchangeably. So it is a central idea of a story that usually reflects what an author wanted to convey. It usually mirrors the position of an author, what an author wanted to say in this story. For example, let's take a legend, a story, beautiful, tragic love story of Koza Kurpesh and Bayan Sulu. you all know the story, right? And you know that the central idea, the central theme of that story was love, because it was a love story. It was the relationship between Koza Korpesh and Bayan Sulu. And also it is about courage, because they needed to have courage in order to be together. And it is also about betrayal that led to the tragic end. So these three concepts, love, courage, and betrayal, can be considered as the central idea of a story. The themes around this story was built. Now, structure of literary analysis. So you will start from introduction. You will need to write an introduction. And in the introduction, you'll have a very concise summary of a story, just in 1-2 sentences. Then you will present the context. And by context, I mean the information about the author, and not only about when and where the author was born, but also about his or her experience that led an author to write this kind of story. Okay, so it will really help you to understand the motives and motivation behind this story and what an author wanted to say. Also, please take into account the intended audience of a story. Who an author wanted this story to be read by. So the audience, the target audience. It can be, for example, students, it can be young adults, or maybe it was intended for researchers and academic people working in the academia. So the context, the audience is very important. But also we are including the historical context of the author, the real life and the experience. Well, I talked about it already. So the next one is setting. And when I say setting, I mean the setting of the story you are working on, right? So when that story happened and where. It might have happened maybe in Kazakhstan in the 19th century, or maybe in Great Britain somewhere in the 11th century. So you need to be very specific about the setting. A few sentences of description would be enough. Then plot of a story. So by plot of a story, we mean a series of events, right? Including opener, opening scene, some kind of tensions, background information in the opening scene, tensions, climax and end. Okay, so that is the plot. Give a very concise, again, not in 1-2 sentences as in the introduction, elaborate a little bit more, but it should not be like just a very chronological description of the events, right? You need to prioritize the most important events in the story, especially if it is a lengthy one. Then you are describing the characters. You are describing the main characters, of course, heroes of a story, but also you need to pay attention to those characters who might be also positive or negative, but who played a great role in the turning of events in some situations, critical situations in a story. Then literary devices. Well, about literary devices, we talked already, we discussed them. It is irony, symbolism, foreshadowing, and so on. But what I want to tell you here is that you shouldn't be overwhelmed or obsessed with trying to find these literary devices, trying to find the examples of these literary devices. Why? In this case, why? Because it will kill the joy of reading the story. And I really want you to enjoy the stories, because these are very good stories by famous American British writers such as Washington Irving, for example, my favorite writer, author Conan Doyle, Rudyard Kipling, Oscar Wilde, and so on. So I really want you to enjoy these stories. But when you read them several times and you are trying to analyze this story, trying to identify the main concepts and themes, trying to build the plot, researching the setting and the context, I think these literal devices, they will be easily found. Hopefully you won't struggle trying to find them, but just try not to hunt for them. It's not the main point. If you find them, it's of course good, and hopefully you will find them and discuss them, but the main idea behind all this exercise is for you to, first of all, analyze your critical thinking skills, but also to enjoy these stories. And then you will try to identify concepts and themes, and then you will try to summarize everything, sum up everything, and come to a conclusion. And when you summarize and when you talk about these concepts and themes, but also when you talk about the characters, about the plot, please do not forget to add your own opinion, add your own examples from your own experience, because it is very important as well. It's part of analysis. Do not shy away from an opportunity to contribute to the story, to the analysis. It is your analysis, it is your voice, it's your interpretation after all. Well, structure of literal analysis will also talk about the time when you do not need to analyze it like this, right? So you are not starting from the introduction, context, setting, but sometimes it might be an essay around one central theme. For example, in Koza Korpesh and Bayan Sulu, you are discussing one central theme, love, and how powerful it is and how it motivates young people and how it brings them courage and so on. So you are discussing one central theme. In this case, it would have, your essay will have introduction, body, and conclusion as usual, but in the introduction, you will write a short summary. And in this case, it would be not 1-2 sentences, it's a little bit more, because you're not going to present the plot separately, right? This is a summary and that's it. And then you will announce a central theme and that you are discussing this central theme based on this story. Then the body, you will bring the examples from a story that illustrate your arguments, right? And then maybe you will compare it with some other experiences and other stories. You can do it. For example, you can create your own foreshadowing and so on. Then conclusion. Here you will reflect on a story and maybe provide certain recommendations for who should read the story and so on. So it depends on your own purpose in writing this essay. So this presentation was built entirely on the information from this website. It is the Texas A&M University Writing Center. This is the link. Deliberately, I decided not to give you a lengthy book chapter, but I decided to provide you with this link in order for you to go there and read this information yourself. It is very well written and clearly presented. I'm sure you will enjoy it. And it's not boring, it's not too theoretical, it's not like a discourse analysis, very complicated and full of terms and so on. It is very easily written and you can start using it immediately. It's like the guidelines. And some of the things that I didn't mention during this presentation, I'm sure you will find there. So go ahead and follow the link. During the first session, you will listen to this lecture, and then I will give you the first story. I think it is Rikiti Kitavi, and we will start from this story and we will analyze it. And of course, we will discuss the analysis beforehand once more time for you to ask questions, if any. So thank you for your attention and enjoy your reading and good luck.